Today's episode of Scrolling to Death is sponsored by Bark Technologies. I am so grateful that these days parents have a safer device option for our kids. The Bark phone was built for families who are looking to ramp up their child's online safety. It has parental controls built in and allows us to manage screen time and their entire digital experience super easily. Thank you for being here today. Tell me what grade you teach.
This year, I'm largely teaching grade 9, and I also have some grade 12 classes, so the beginning of high school, end of high school.
Okay, what subject is that?
So mostly English and a little bit of history.
Okay, how long have you been teaching for?
I started teaching in '06.
Wow, 16, 26. So I'm going to be 20 years soon.
Yeah, which is wild.
Yeah, wow. And so you've really seen this evolution from
The
no
front row.
smartphones.
Yeah.
Yeah, front row to this evolution of phones in the classroom. So let's talk about smartphones. And are they currently allowed in your school or in your classroom?
So big news. Prior to this week, we had writing in our policies that say that phones are only meant for instructional purposes, but it really felt like a game of whack-a-mole. It wasn't preventative. And certainly if there was a consistent problem, administrators would have our back, but it was constantly just putting out individual fires. But just this week, our Minister of Education came out with a sweeping policy that's above the board. So from a provincial level, that starting next year, there will be more strict rules in place for K to 6 and then grade 6 plus.
Okay, good. I think that schools are really getting serious about this. Almost every teacher I talk to is like, well, we haven't had one, but next year they're going to implement something. And I would be interested to know what they're going to be improving upon with the current policy and how they're going to actually regulate it, because that can be tricky.
It's a little political. They didn't say the word cell phone ban. They just said they are not to be seen or heard. So there's still a little bit of ambiguity. It'll be interesting to see how it pans out.
So what's the current policy right now?
So the current policy is that phones are not to be used unless instructed by, like, maybe as a calculator in math or to look up some terms. And that if phones are found to be distracting for individual or group use, that they have to give them to the teacher. And if they refuse to give them to the teacher, they have to go to the office. That's the way it is now, but teachers fight that fight to varying levels.
That's what I'm hearing. Each individual teacher kind of approaches it a little bit differently, or is kind of, some are at their max and done with it, and some are still willing to spend their time trying to manage it. Yeah. How much time do you feel like you're spending of each class period trying to enforce the smartphone situation?
So I come in hot in grade 9. They're new to high school. They're learning things new. And for me, it is a hill to die on. And I figure we'll fight that fight early and consistently, and then hopefully it can be sort of managed throughout the remainder of the semester. But that's a balance, because you also want to establish good rapport and good relationships. And sometimes it just feels like it's like the no phone school rather than actually progressing forward. But it has been okay with grade 9s. It gets more and more difficult every year. So with my grade 12s, I have a very difficult time convincing them that it's worthwhile. And it feels very strange to take the phone away from a kid who's going away to university in like 5 months, right? So I don't know.
Yeah. So it's harder just because they're a bit older and more used to the phone use, would you say?
Yeah. And I think also, ideally, they would be developing those own personal habits of discipline, right? Especially if they're going to be like paying tuition and going away to college. So part of it is like allowing them to experience the consequences of being distracted. But on the other hand, I command the class community. So it is a tension with those older students.
Yeah. And then it's like, is that now part of the teacher's job to teach cell phone management? Because that's a skill they're going to need to learn somewhere, right? What specific issues are the cell phones causing in your classroom?
So I've really been thinking about this question, and I've watched a lot of your other interviews, and it's just bang on. But one thing I think I'd like to add that I think might not be in the front of our mind is I'm really seeing those critical thinking skills deteriorating quite rapidly.
Okay.
So we're still good at fact finding. Where did they go? What did they do? More or less. That really hasn't changed much. But the bigger questions, the more open-ended questions that I can't Google, I'm finding that those thinking skills are eroding probably from lack of attention and lack of needing to really work through questions and needing to think through problems, because I can just distract myself if I don't know the answer. I can look the answer up. So that is where in our department, in the English department, we are really recognizing, wow, these skills of thinking about something critically from many angles and drawing connections.
Yeah.
I don't know that you would necessarily attribute that to phone use, but that is, as we see phones becoming more and more of a problem, that is a specific skill in the classroom and a life skill that we're seeing begin to
Yeah.
deteriorate.
I mean, that's just having access to technology at all. Like in my home specifically, my husband is quick to be like, oh, let me IMDb figure out who this actor is, or let me look this thing up. And I try to tell him, because the kids are watching us, like, let's try to figure it out with our brains first. And I'll even, before looking something up, I'll say, let's call Papa, like my dad to my daughter. I'll say, let's call your grandpa and ask him, because he knows a lot about this, rather than number one, looking it up on the phone or asking Alexa, because she probably just heard me downstairs. But we all have Alexa in our house, and the kids know how to use that thing at like 2 years old. So that starts from young age. I think parents can just make a mental note to, like, if your kid's asking you something, like take a few minutes to try to really think about it and talk it out before you just look it up, because your kids are
Absolutely.
seeing that
And that's
and losing all
reinforcing,
of those
like,
critical thinking skills. Yeah.
that's right. And that's reinforcing pro-social skills as well. Conversation, the
Okay.
art of listening,
Yeah.
the art of like reasoning things out together. Another thing that we're seeing in the classroom is, so one thing I'm required to cover in English is oral communication. And every single semester, we're going to have students say, I'm too anxious to do an oral presentation. Because we just aren't having any face-to-face conversations in life, right? We are processing what we want to say and curating what we want to say, and having even like romantic conversations through text, and rather than natural organic presentations or any sort of personal skills. It's been an interesting thing to watch, because online they don't have any sort of privacy, or they're not guarded with, I mean, apart from, I suppose, like curating a specific image, but in front of their classmates, they don't want to speak.
Okay. I've even heard some teachers share that students will email them during class when they're right in front of each other. Like the student will email the teacher, and the teacher will be like, I'm not reading that. You can talk to me.
That's right.
Okay. Those are very helpful. Thank you for those added notes about how smartphones are affecting the kids in the classroom. And any benefits you've seen to having smartphones in the classroom?
We have a growing number of like new Canadians that are coming who don't have English as their first language. So I know our team is encouraging a lot of our English language learners to use their phone with help to translate and find resources. I'm not well versed in that. I keep going to training on that, but I can't get my feet under me on that. But I have seen that can be a helpful tool. It can also be a tool for academic dishonesty. Especially our students in French are just using their phone for, translation and AI generated answers. And that can be helpful with our English language learners. It can also be helpful with students with special needs who need sort of assistive technology. But again, whenever it's on a phone as opposed to maybe a school regulated device, you have those distractions right there at your fingertips. So its usefulness is outweighed sometimes by the distractions as well.
Yeah. Well, you have those addictive platforms throwing notifications at them all over the place. And so they may go to it to use it just as the tool, but then the toy part of it just takes over. You mentioned AI generators, and like, I haven't asked this to anybody before, but are any teachers using Chat GPT for lessons or in any, especially in your subject? Like, is that being used at all on the teacher's side or the student side?
I'm a slow adopter. I'm not super excited about AI. I have some professional tension about using something that I'm asking my students not to use. I don't personally use AI as a generator at all. I don't know if that'll change as we get, some regulation around AI. I feel uncomfortable using something that is so unregulated. And I also feel uncomfortable using something that I'm explicitly asking my students not to use. But I'm sure that there is some working out of the kinks there. Students using it? Absolutely. 100%.
They are using it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Which just takes away even more of the critical thinking skills, right?
Yeah. because we're not used to being uncomfortable, right? We're never bored. We're never having to reason through something or work through something. And those critical thinking skills or those creative thinking skills require processing time and silence of the mind, and requires time to like actually let things roll around in their mind and try different ideas out. And I feel like that can be very like unfamiliar and very vulnerable. And so we just try to go for a quick answer, and AI is a quick answer.
Okay, so how much less learning is being done due to smartphones? You probably heard this question
Oh
before. So
gosh.
if you could guess, like how many minutes of a typical class period are spent managing use of the cell phone?
Managing use. So
Yeah.
yesterday I had, it's funny you should mention that. Yesterday we had not a great day with phones in my history class, and I put the writing on the wall, literally put the policy from the board on the wall and underlined it, and I said, I'm going scorched earth. If I see a phone today, straight to the office. And we got everything done. Everything done. We had curiosity.
Wow.
What about
Yeah.
this? When was this invented? I don't know. Let's look it up. And it was collaborative,
Oh.
conversational, productive. It was 180 from the day before. So I'm not sure I can quantify exactly how much, but our
Okay.
periods are 75 minutes a day. And I bet you kids could be on their phone. I mean, I try to, especially with my younger students, I try to be really militant, but my older ones will probably just have it on
Yeah.
consistently through the whole class.
Through the whole class.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Unless you were like, don't put it down, put it down, put it down the whole time, but then you're not able to teach.
That's right.
Not great.
No,
um, okay. So would you prefer smartphones be really, truly banned at your school?
absolutely. 100%. 100%. I've heard of schools in our area that are saying no phones at all, not in the halls, not at lunch. They have seen school involvement go up, pride of place go up, social skills go up, mental health issues down, conflicts down, engagement in class up. Like, I'm excited because I bet you the data is going to follow, right? That when we can take a hard line, we are going to see improvements in some of these areas that we're really concerned about. My hope is that we will get there. I think there's a lot of parental fear, and I think there's a lot of fear on students' end because they literally can't even conceive of it at all.
What do you think parents are afraid of?
I think that there's a lot of fear. I think parents have fear that I can't get a hold of my student if I need to get a hold of them, which, like, we are their parents. How did our parents get a hold of an emergency, right? They would call the office and then they would come and get us. But I think there's a lot of fear. I think there is perhaps some codependency, just needing to have my kid on a short leash and needing to know the highs and lows of the day. I think it's largely fear.
Yeah. I mean, we've been given the tools to keep literal digital tabs on them for their whole lives. And so to break that when they're reliant on us too, and we are digitally pacifying them all day with, oh, that kid was mean to you, I'll talk to his mom, or like, or what do you want for dinner? Or, how did that test go? Or, all these things that we shouldn't be able to ask them during the day because that's their time to learn and socialize. So I think this will be if we can really get this done across schools, it'll be good for parents too, to like, how much time are we spending as parents thinking about and communicating with our children during the day that we could be working and doing things for ourselves too, right?
Absolutely.
I haven't thought about it from that angle too. So let's talk about the ninth graders. Do they all have cell phones?
Pretty much.
Are they all iPhones or Androids, or is there any dumb phones or bark phones or anything like that?
I don't think we get bark phones up here.
Okay. Yes, you're right.
Yeah, the only flip phone I've ever seen was a student who got grounded and her mom still wanted to be reachable, so she gave her a flip phone. But other than that, it's an assortment of Android and Apple.
Okay. And then are you aware if the ninth grade kids are on social media and like what platforms they're on?
Snapchat. Snapchat is huge. Yeah. And TikTok as well, but I think it's probably those two. TikTok is more distracting and Snapchat is more insidious. So it's got its claws in every aspect of their lives.
Why do you feel that Snapchat is insidious for their lives?
Can I tell you a story?
Yes, of course.
Okay.
Love stories.
Yeah. So I was teaching a grade 11 class, so the second oldest class. And I had a
Mm-hmm.
student come up to me and say, so and so is bullying me. And I was like, the class is dead silent. How is she bullying you? And she opened Snapchat and said, I hate so and so. I wish somebody would douse her in gasoline and throw her in a wood chipper in class.
Oh my God.
She had taken a
On
photo of the
Snapchat.
back of her head on Snapchat. And because we never want to be left out, they were friends on Snapchat. And so she is seeing this in class while she is trying to get her work done. And that was a game changer for me in my willingness to like, that's why I fight so hard with my grade nines that absolutely not. One, it's a distraction, but two, like I was in the room with that. And that was so
Yeah.
quiet and so insidious. And I didn't even, I mean, I could see that people were like distracted on their phone, but I didn't know a kid was getting bullied right before my eyes. So admin was very quick to support us in that. And that student was obviously suspended, but it's just, it creeps in. Like there's no escape from it. And I've heard you say it's not only what comes in, but it's also what's like missed out. Like all of my friends went across to the plaza at lunch and didn't invite me,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
Well, in your
Or
example that this child, the child that was being bullied, felt like she had to be connected with someone who was bullying her.
that's right.
Like she couldn't even have the strength to block that person or didn't have the social confidence to do that.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so sad.
Yeah.
And okay. So you feel like from what you can observe, their activity on social media is negative, is mainly negative or positive. Is there positive aspects that you're observing?
I don't know. My 10th grade son is not on social media, so
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't come home into our home and we don't like talk about what's
Mm-hmm.
happening. I can only kind of see
Okay.
peripherally what's happening in the classroom, but there's a lot of
Yeah.
drama. I know there's like goofy
Yeah.
memes and goofy conversations that are happening. But I'm also
Mm-hmm.
seeing like joking around until it goes too far, right? And
Yeah.
when that happens in
Yeah.
the hallway, hopefully there's a caring adult that can speak into that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And say you crossed a
Yeah.
line or whatever. But when it's happening online, there's no sort of adult in the room, so to speak, to buffer that or to coach through that.
Yeah.
And so it's these
Right.
kids are metabolizing that at home or in the hall or in
Mm-hmm.
class on their own.
Yeah.
And that's really sad.
Yeah. And the social media companies aren't flagging any of that either. So although they could monitor and filter some of that bullying and things like that, but they don't. So you mentioned your son doesn't have social media. So what is your home approach or your family approach to social media for your kids? And then what ages are they?
Yeah, so we have, I'll round up. We have one turning 16, one turning 14, and one turning 12, all in the next
Uh-huh.
few months. So grade 10, grade 8 heading into high school, and then grade 6. So two in middle school and one in high school.
Mm-hmm.
And our
Yeah.
approach to even screens at all and social media
Mm-hmm.
has started years ago because my oldest
Mm-hmm.
is of the iPad generation, right? Like he was a
Mm-hmm.
baby when those colorful iPads were coming out, and
Yes.
there was an iPad in front of every kid at Costco and in every stroller. And my
That
husband and
hurts
I are
me.
like, we just felt uncomfortable with that, even at a very young
Yeah.
age. So it wasn't until COVID that our kids had any personal devices at all. And that was just out of necessity
Mm-hmm.
for school. But we
Mm-hmm.
had talked about social media as we sort of anticipated that it was going to be brought up with our kids. So we had to get in front of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And we had to speak to it the same way we would with any big thing for our kids, dating. Like we would talk about dating and character and who do you want to be and what do you value in somebody else. We start that conversation way before they're actually ready to start
Mm-hmm.
dating, right? And so
Yes.
likewise, we started
Amazing.
these conversations with social media early, right? Why
Mm-hmm.
do people use social media? What can it be used for? What can it be helpful for? What can it be harmful for? So we had those conversations
Mm-hmm.
early. And we also planted some seeds. Like with what we're hearing now, we're not going to be comfortable with you on Snapchat. And I know that's going to be a difficult
Mm-hmm.
thing. We're not going to be comfortable with you on this or that. And we're trying to maintain
Yeah.
an open posture. But as it stands, there will be no social media until at least grade 11 or 16 plus, at least. And
Mm-hmm.
there are some that are just like big NO. And that was really challenging for our oldest. Our younger two have zero interest at all. They're not interested.
Mm-hmm.
My,
Okay.
but my oldest was, he really pressed us on Snapchat, especially. That's the social currency. That's
Mm-hmm.
where all his friends were.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that led to, there was obviously some tension there. And, you want to give space and hear where they're coming from. But at the end of the day, like, we
Mm-hmm.
have to be the adults in the room, and we have to say, like, out of confidence and not out of fear. Having had, because my
Yeah.
husband is also a high school teacher, right? So we've had these front row seats for years. So we approached with
Mm-hmm.
confidence and said, like, I know that you're not going to like this answer, but we're confident in this stance, and I'm okay to be wrong on
Yep.
this. If it turns out I was wildly wrong, I would rather be wrong on this side of the equation than wrong with some of
Mm-hmm.
these other problems that are coming out. So, and since then, he said,
Yeah.
I'm not interested in Snapchat. So,
Really?
yeah,
What turned him around, do you think?
I
When did that change?
recently, so
Huh.
probably this semester, he got actually some really great friends at school in person. I don't think they're on Snapchat. I don't think so. He has
Wow.
asked about some others, so we'll have some ongoing conversation as he gets closer. But the fact that he
Mm-hmm.
was able to look back and be like, I think it's drama, I think it's distracting, I think there's like there's toxicity there, and our school has really bad
Wow.
Wi-Fi, and he gets distracted pretty easily. And he's like, I'm actually doing really well in all my classes. I don't need another distraction in my life. So I'm really proud of him, but he had to kind of come to that spot
Mm-hmm.
on his own to say, I'm not interested in this.
Yeah. Gosh, that's so amazing that you guys held the line on that. 'Cause so many parents, they do give in when
Yeah.
it comes to the kid feeling left out. I mean, that's a
Yes.
sad thing to feel. But I also feel strongly that my protection and keeping them away from that platform, specifically Snapchat, is more important than the left out feeling. Like the harm is too great. And
Yes.
it's so amazing to hear that he came around because you educated him and he probably observed his friends and how it was affecting them.
Mm-hmm.
And then also that he found friends by not being on Snapchat. He found other friends on his own that
Yeah.
weren't on Snapchat. Like you didn't even have to like coordinate that with other parents, right?
Yeah. Yeah. As I was thinking about our conversation today, I just really, really want to encourage parents to do what they know is right, and to do it with confidence
Mm-hmm.
and
Yeah.
conviction and caution too, right? And not like sort of shrink out of fear and say like it's going to be no, 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 because that in of itself isn't going to be a good enough reason when your kid comes to you and saying,
Mm-hmm.
I'm left out. I'm not on the,
Mm-hmm.
so and so's account. I'm not even on the school's Instagram account, because the left out
Mm-hmm.
feeling is legitimate, 100%.
Yeah.
And high school is
Yeah.
hard. Yes, it's so hard, especially in those younger grades when you're trying to figure things out. But
Mm-hmm.
our kids need us. They need us to be
Yeah.
rational, and they need us to be protecting them. I
Yeah.
understand the pull. I even phoned my best friend who's on team no social media, and I said like, help me out, I'm having a moment of weakness, and she's like,
Yeah.
you have confidence in this decision. But that
Mm-hmm.
pull is difficult. And I think that if other parents knew that there are people like
Mm-hmm.
us out there who are proceeding in
Yeah.
confidence, willing to say like, I know this is hard, but I'm going to do this out of confidence, because I can see
Yeah.
high school and middle school is such a fragment of time, and their brains
Mm-hmm.
are still
Mm-hmm.
developing, right? And this time is so important.
Yes.
I'm not willing to
Yes.
compromise that so they have updates on the football game. Like, I'm just not. So
Right.
maybe that's me being,
No.
too cautious. But
It's not. And there's those brain development pieces are like building blocks on each other. And once that gets through one phase, like you can't go back. Like we have to take advantage of this time by making those safer decisions for them. And I wonder if you could share a couple of the points that you used in your conversations with him to that really you felt like were maybe convincing or kept
mm,
him, straight on that. Like what are some of the like, did you talk about social media like harms, or did you talk about stories of kids getting exposed to things or statistics? Like, what did you use in those conversations?
yeah, so we watched, what was the big movie that came out
Uh,
and it had like the
Social
avatar?
dilemma.
Yes, I think so. It has like the avatar and
Social
they show
dilemma.
this. Yes. So
Yeah.
we talked about that. I think a huge thing for him was the algorithm. And he's like, I feel
Yeah.
uncomfortable that an algorithm has power over my brain and my thoughts, which I thought was wild.
Amazing.
He's like, I want to have my own thoughts. I don't want to go to Burger King because of what I'm seeing. I want to go to Burger King because I want Burger King, you know, never Burger King, but
Mm-hmm. Wow.
I thought that was a
Yeah.
fascinating read, right? About just wanting
Yes.
autonomy over his own thoughts. So that was one. We had
Because
talked about,
sorry to interrupt you, but
yeah,
teenagers want autonomy. Like this is the whole point of being a teenager, is to start to separate from your parental unit and do things on your own. That's why they like push back on you so much. So that point really touches on that need for autonomy and not to be controlled.
isn't
So
that
that's like
wild?
a really key point. Yes. Okay. Sorry. Go on.
No, I was blown over by that. I thought that was fascinating,
Yeah.
especially for like a kid, like I said, from the iPad generation who's just had it in front of them forever,
Yeah.
to say like, I actually
Yeah.
want to be separate from this. I don't want to be
Yeah.
so
I
influenced by
love that.
something that just wants to profit off me. So that was a big one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Distractibility was a huge one. I think he's recognized that he
Mm-hmm.
has the ability to be distracted like all of us, right? And he's
Mm-hmm.
studied what it's like to be in class without those distractions, and he's doing great. You know, he'll be on a roll for a
Yeah.
second year in a row. And even just
Oh,
between,
yeah.
you know, he never, like, he doesn't have social media, but even like those dumb little games on your phone,
Yeah.
like he was
Mm-hmm.
playing those dumb little games when he was done his work, right? And even now,
Mm-hmm.
his marks have gone up because he's like, I don't want the distraction. So
Yeah.
distraction, mind control of the algorithm, and then just
Yeah.
the like the never escaping from the drama, not only with what's
Mm.
actively going on, but the feelings of like, I don't need to know what I'm missing out on. I don't need to be reminded that I'm
Mm-hmm.
not part of something.
Yeah.
Or like
Yeah.
kids are impulsive, they can say something stupid and then it's been said, and then it's just been said and
Mm-hmm.
heard, right? So I think for him
Yeah.
the big
Yeah.
two were the first two.
Thank you so much for sharing that. That's really helpful for parents. And I'll make sure to do a clip of that so I
Ah,
can share it specifically, because I think it's parents are desperate for talking points around this stuff and confidence in what they're trying to stand for. And so it's really helpful for parents like you to share your experience. Thank you for that. Okay. If you could speak directly to parents, what would you request of parents when it comes to kids and their smartphones?
support, 100%. I think that parents might not ever say it out loud, but the feeling is, but my kid is the exception, right? I know we have these policies, but
Mm-hmm.
my kid is an exception. And as lovingly as
Mm-hmm.
I can possibly get across, they're not. They're
Yeah.
not the exception. And if everybody
Right.
felt that way, we're never going to make
Mm-hmm.
any progress. So we need support. And then I'm going to ask
Mm-hmm.
for trust. Like, trust my professional judgment. I've been at this long enough, you know, to have seen a before and to have seen a
Mm-hmm.
during, and to say, like, I am confident that if you trust me and if we are on the same page, we can work
Yeah.
together to help your student not only do better in English and history, that's besides the point, but
Mm-hmm.
communicating face to face, problem solving, critical thinking. I'm asking for
Mm-hmm.
support and trust, which I understand is very hard,
Okay.
right?
Yeah, it is. Because the parent just wants to be in control. And we really hand that over, and we do have to trust that it's hard. I mean, even in my experience with my younger kids getting handed devices in the classroom, and we'll talk about school issued devices in a moment, but I'm like, how much are you actually giving it to them? Are they doing it every free moment? How
Mm.
many times, I asked my kids yesterday, how many times are you picking up your iPad during the school day? And my son, who's 6, said, like two to three times. And I said, okay. And then my daughter was like, I couldn't even count,
Wow.
like 20, like, because everything they're required to do academically is now on an iPad. So yeah, that lack of control. So that's why I try to be so conservative in my home with screens, because I know they're getting so much at school and I don't have control there. And I know the teachers are just doing the best they can. They're required to put them on those devices and do the testing on there and everything. So
Yeah.
it's tough. It's a tough situation.
But can I just speak to that for a second, Nikki, before you move
Yeah,
on?
sure.
I wanted to
Yeah.
share with you that if we pension like an education side, data is actually beginning to come out about the ineffectiveness of using our electronic devices. So reading comprehension is down significantly, up to 30% lower when we read on a device. Memory is improved when we handwrite notes. So handwriting over typing is reinforcing our learning. We're starting to see it's not just, shaking a stick at new technology, but it's actually acknowledging that some of those more traditional practices of reading on a page and holding it in your hand and slowing down when you need to
Yeah.
slow down and then writing by hand is actually improving student outcomes. and teachers are tired.
Mm-hmm.
Our class sizes are enormous, and the need is great. So I understand why
Mm-hmm.
we are using devices so
Yeah.
much, but I'm confident in that data, right? That if we sort of
Yeah.
return to more traditional practices where we can, that we'll also see student
Yeah.
outcomes improve.
Yeah, I believe wholeheartedly in that data as well. And I think that teachers, despite what they're being told to do, like we have to be putting the device down whenever possible. But the problem that I run into with this is personally, we had an online safety night with our district tech guy. And I asked specifically, like, can I opt out? I want to opt out of using the device, at least having to bring it home, having to have my kids bring it home. And it was like, well, it's case by case basis, but likely your child's going to be behind if they do that. And so, yeah, I struggle a lot with this because of that data that you mentioned. Then why are we giving them? Hang on, let's get back to. Let me finish up on the smartphones, and then I want to have this discussion about school issued devices because yes, that's a whole other thing. So, just a couple more things on the smartphones with your school. Regulating cell phones a little bit more strictly next year, what would you request of them? Like, what does that look like to you?
Of the school or of parents?
Of the school.
The school would
Yeah.
be quick support and direct. So the way it is now, technically on paper, is you should have your phone away. But if it's a problem, you can take it, which I don't physically take it because I'm not touching anybody's $500 anything. They can put it on my desk themselves.
No. Yeah.
But that's a power struggle, right? And that erodes the fabric of sort of that relational it leverages our relationship, right? When you're having to fight like over a phone. And
over the thing that is most important to them.
And it's so disruptive. And it's like we're all stopping while I wait for so-and-so to comply. No, they're not going to comply. So now I'm going to fill out a thing.
Yeah.
And then now we've all stopped. It's so disruptive to the harmony of the classroom. So next year, I want there to be consistency. Everybody in the school, at every school, because it's supposed to be from the province down, consistency is key. So consistent response, clear communication. So I want like if-thens to be very clear, and then follow up. That would be really helpful for us.
Great. Anything else you want to share about smartphones in school to parents, teachers, anybody that's listening?
Nothing new. I am excited about a day when we have done the learning and now we're doing the doing and we're being bold enough to proceed without some of these impediments to education.
Okay. And so do smartphones belong in the classroom?
No.
Okay.
They do not.
Thank you. Let's move to school issued devices. So do your students have individual one-to-one school issued devices?
No.
Okay.
We have
so like a cart system?
Yeah.
How do you feel that is working for your classroom?
It's okay. So we have X amount per classroom, which is not a full class set. So we have to do a lot of borrowing and sharing. I'm pretty minimal in my computer use unless absolutely necessary. Our board has blocked a lot of distracting websites. So that's gotten a little bit better.
Okay. So do the students, then they don't take them home?
No.
Okay. Cool. That's good. I always like the cart system much better because they're just not sitting there on them all day at school. Have they been able to access anything inappropriate? You mentioned you guys, your district has locked them down pretty well, but what were they accessing or what are they accessing that they're not supposed to?
I think it's actually getting a lot better. Even 5 years ago, I was in an alternative classroom where behaviors were a pretty significant issue. And I had a student who had like very limited impulse control. Said, "Do you want to see something on my phone?" I said, "No, I do not. I do not. I do not want to see what's on your phone." And then he put his phone in front of me and it was adult content.
Jumping in here to tell you guys a little bit more about the best phone for kids, and that is the Bark phone. If you don't want your kids signing up for social media, an iPhone is not going to do it. The Bark phone starter plan comes with talk and text only. If and when you're ready to start integrating some social media access or more screen time, there are advanced plans available that offer social media, but not without your approval. Plus, it has advanced content monitoring and will send you alerts of potential dangers. So when it comes to a basic phone that won't addict your child and distract them from school or healthy activities, the Bark phone is where it's at. If your child already has an iPhone or an Android and you don't want to switch it up, please layer on the Bark parental controls as a baseline. You can set rules around screen time, block certain websites and apps. You still get alerts and tons more helpful options for parents. Why would he show you
I
that?
don't know. I have no idea. I have
Oh,
no idea.
okay. And that was on his phone. That was
That
on
was on
his
his
phone, not the
phone,
school issued.
not the school
Yeah.
issue device, but
Okay.
they share the same. I'm
Okay.
glad
So he
that
could have accessed that from his school issued device. Ugh. Okay. So you feel like, though, now it's locked down a lot better as far as the
as far as I
controls.
can tell, there might be some
Mm-hmm.
workarounds that I'm not aware of, but in my
Okay.
classroom, the school issue devices are not really the problem.
Okay. When they do have to use a school issued device, are they doing what they're supposed to be doing most of the time, or are they usually distracted on there or finding something else to do?
It's usually pretty good. It's usually pretty good. The
Okay.
only distraction
Okay.
might be
Good.
that they might play music in the background, like they might open a tab and play some music in the background. But generally, I run a
Okay.
pretty tight ship.
And that in that case, would they have headphones in?
Yeah.
Do you try to require them to take them out, or is that not a battle you want to fight at this point?
So when I'm at the front, I don't allow headphones at
Mm-hmm.
all, even if there's nothing playing, because I'm trying
Mm-hmm.
to, again, like reinforce pro-social behaviors. And if I'm wearing
Yeah,
headphones while you're talking to me, I'm communicating that I'm only partially listening or not listening at all. Um,
totally. Yeah.
so yeah, so if they're working quietly, there can be
Mm-hmm.
times when I'm okay with quiet music.
Okay. Do you feel that learning through technology is as effective as face to face, hand to paper lessons?
In my discipline, no.
Okay. All right. And you've already talked through some of the research, which I really appreciate, around the difference between learning on a screen and through paper or books. And do you guys have any more paper textbooks, or is everything on the computer?
We still have paper books. Other
Okay.
disciplines are sort of moving away from a traditional textbook in favor of
Mm,
other sources. I'm still primarily in English where we still have books for the most part.
good. Okay. Okay. So overall, you feel like you have pretty good control over the use of the school issued devices in your classroom.
Yeah,
And I feel that is generally the answer with a cart system, just because it's not, they don't feel like it's
it's
theirs, and
theirs. Yeah,
they don't get comfortable enough with it, or to be able to manipulate it and find all the things. They don't have enough time at home to really figure out how to get access to
that's
those
right.
distracting things on that device. Okay.
Yeah.
What does your perfect world look like when it comes to students and technology?
The perfect world would be where technology is used to enhance their curiosity.
Mm-hmm.
So, for instance, today with that lesson that was just like really organic and conversational, we were talking about food that we ate during the Depression. And somebody said, did
Mm,
they have ketchup? I was like, let's look it up. That sort of inspired curiosity. It allowed us to continue in
mm-hmm.
that train of curiosity and insight.
Yes.
And I think that's
Yeah.
really great. I think if it can, yeah, enhance learning skills, there can be a place for it.
Mm-hmm.
Again, I'm pretty minimal. I try not to use technology technology as a whole, but I just prefer
Yeah.
in-person tactile experiences unless we have sort of other needs. But perfect
Yeah.
world would be
Yeah.
technology would be to help and not harm, and to help would
Yeah.
be to, yeah, carry on learning to help me communicate better as opposed to impeding my
Mm-hmm.
own communication skills. Does that make sense?
Right. Yes, totally. Totally. Because it blocks all communication when you're giving them access, at least definitely the smartphones.
Yeah.
Just blocks everything they're trying to do in face to face. Does technology, in your experience, make your job easier or harder?
Oh, harder.
Does you harder? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. And in what ways?
Yeah, it's just the presence in the classroom. Like they're present, but they're not
Yeah.
present, right? So,
Mm-hmm.
like
Yeah.
I had a student the other day who was present for a whole lesson. She's a pretty keen student.
Mm-hmm.
The phone, we were doing a pick
Yeah.
your battles kind of a day. She was present,
Yeah.
and then the next day she said, like, I don't even know what any of this is. I said, we did this yesterday. She had zero memory. She was present, but she wasn't
Mm.
present at all. She was making eye contact with
Yeah.
me. She had the book open,
Wow.
but it wasn't that she didn't even remember what we said. She had no memory of the lesson at all. So
Because she was thinking about something going on her phone, or she was in and out of her phone during the lesson?
yeah,
Don't know.
some duality there.
Yeah, there's something too, definitely. just having their phone in their eye line or even in their pocket, or knowing that it's on them and that things are going off that they're missing.
Yes.
That's why this solution of you've probably heard of those magnetic pouches, those yonder pouches that
Mm-hmm.
schools are using, where the phone needs to be turned off and it goes in a magnetic pouch that they cannot get to all day. And then they have to get it unlocked at the end of the day. And there's something to the fact that it's off and inaccessible that really allows them to put it out of mind. But if it's even in their backpack and they know that they're getting messages, they're thinking about
Absolutely.
that, formulating responses, stressing out about who's messaged them, who's bullying them, or what's going on. And it's distracting them from that classroom learning. It just, I can't believe we got this far with it. I can't believe we let kids have cell phones in classes up until now.
I think there was an optimism. I think whenever there's new technology, there's a tremendous amount of optimism about, bring your own device, like bring your own device board, and optimism around AI, and optimism around, like we were on the front end of Facebook, and it was, sharing whatever. Like, I don't think any of us really saw at the front end where things would go. Optimism, yes, but also caution. And also, like, again, it comes back to those critical thinking, right? Like, how does this play out? If we never had face-to-face conversations, how does this play out? If we're never meeting together, how does this play out? Does this affect things later on?
Yeah. Yes, it seems obvious now, and I understand the optimism piece for sure. But we shouldn't be testing things out on children in the classroom setting.
No, absolutely not.
Not at all.
Early on, when we had our first and our second, we were at the zoo. And this picture is so clear in my mind. And it was sort of the beginning of lots of conversations in our home. But we're at the zoo in the summer. And there was a family near us, and they had a double stroller. And they had the stroller up to an aquarium. And it had all sorts of cool, colorful fish. And they pushed the stroller right up to the aquarium. And all these cool fish are going about. And in the stroller were these two preschoolers with iPads right in front of their face. And it was, to me, like, it was just such a metaphor of this whole thing, right? That I'm sure what's on that iPod is cool. I'm sure it's cool. And I'm sure on its own, it's not inherently bad. But what is missed, right? What's missed when my vision is instead of the literal colors and movement and
Yes. And that's what a lot of the researchers are pointing to. It's, yes, the technologies can be harmful and addictive and all these things, but what the big problem is what you're missing when you're on that screen, especially as babies and toddlers and young children. Like, you learn, your brain develops and learns how to fire by looking other people in the face and mimicking their emotions and their facial expressions. And you're missing out on all of that. And that makes me so sad. I hate that story. Is there anything else you want to share on this topic? Anything at all? A story or any other thoughts?
Yeah, there's one last story I want to say, and this is to parents and probably some teachers who are like, I can't fight this anymore, but especially parents. So about 10 years ago, I was at professional development about the connection between social media and mental health problems with our students. And they were listing statistic after, all these statistics, right? And how can we support students in this? And just really like speaking about the inevitability of these problems, of these emotional problems because of social media. And I put up my hand and I said, 10 years ago, or we can just not have it. Like that is an option, right? Like we can just not have it. And the person who was running the workshop said to me, well, you would be surprised how it makes its way into your home. And I said, no, it's my home. There's nothing coming into this home that so anyway, that story, there's just this, and this was in my first message to you, there just seems to be like a, what are you going to do about it mentality? And the answer is like, we need to be the grown-ups in the room, and we need to do what's best for our kids. And we're, we coddle so much in the physical world, but on the digital world, we are like, it's the Wild West. So parents, don't be surprised at how things find their way into your home. It's your home, and with confidence, be in control of that. And again, not with like an iron fist, but as an opportunity for discussion and for growth, and to maintain an open posture to hear our kids. And when we say no Snapchat, be willing to listen to how that's going to be challenging for them and meet them there, but hold your ground, right? And I
Yeah.
really believe
I
that we'll see
love
fruit
that.
from that later.
100%. We're seeing how these things are affecting kids. I have an interview coming up with Chris Perriette. She's with the Children and Screens Institute, and they do a lot of research. And I talked with her about how it's affecting, how all this over use of screens and social media is affecting kids later on in life in their adulthood. And so listeners can listen into that. But the point that you just made about it's your choice. Like it's your choice in your home. And yes, they go out in the world and they may sneak it and look at things on their friend's device or go to school and look something up at on their school device. But if you have conversations in your home about the dangers or the harms or the reason why, educate them on why you're making these decisions in the home, then that should radiate out into their other activities outside of the home as well. So I really appreciate you being so open with your decisions and your discussions with your son, especially. I think that's going to help a lot of parents. And then thank you for everything you do for our kids. And again, I just really appreciate you being so open.
Well,
Thank you so
likewise.
much.
And thank you for giving teachers a
Yeah.
platform and even just speaking to this issue as a whole. We just need advocates and
Yeah.
we need people who are normalizing these conversations. So I appreciate it.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you. Okay.